All right, so now that you've got Zotero installed, it's time to start actually adding things to Zotero that we want to keep organized. Now you can add tons of different types of things to Zotero, and over the course of these videos I'll show you a few kind of unique things that I have added to my Zotero, but for the most part you're probably going to be looking at articles and maybe some books. But I do just want to say that you can add all sorts of stuff. So books, book sections, journal articles, I can speak, software, etc. But then you can even do more, and there's all sorts of stuff that you might want to add. A patent, a statute, a TV broadcast, video recordings, blog posts. Your favorite Reddit thread could be in your Zotero. So one of the ways to add things is to use just what I'm looking at now, use that little green plus button and put new item. This is essentially a manual entry, so you can just, I'm going to add a book, and then it pops up here on the right, and I can just manually start entering things. Goodnight Moon, a quality publication, and then add in author names, published dates, etc. But this is obviously kind of a painstaking way to add things to Zotero, so I almost never add things like this. So we're going to remove Goodnight Moon for now, and I'll show you how I actually tend to add things to Zotero, because it's probably the ways that you're going to be most likely to add things as well. So let's start looking for things to add to Zotero. So we'll go to PubMed and we'll look for nutrition and cognitive decline. Okay, and so here is a paper that looks kind of interesting: nutrition, physical activity, and other lifestyle factors in prevention of cognitive decline and dementia. Let's say that I want to add this paper to my Zotero. So we'll find the paper, so full text at PubMed Central. So here we've got the full paper, and you'll remember we added the Zotero connector to our browser in the previous video. So since we've done that, now anywhere on this page, doesn't matter where, we can just right click, and there's now a save to Zotero, and I can say PubMed Central, and now we can see it's saving to my library, PubMed Central link. So now we can go over to my library, and there it is: nutrition, physical activity, and other lifestyle factors. It's got all the authors here, the name, the abstract, the publication, etc. I do recommend double checking here to make sure that this is accurate. Every once in a while, in particular, the pages, like that's the incorrect page number. So every once in a while this messes up a little bit, but usually it's pretty darn close. So that's one way, and probably the easiest way, and the way that I most often add things to Zotero. So now it is in my Zotero file. So it just added to my library, but if I want to, if this was general research interest, I could add it there. And now if I go into general research interest, there it is. So I can use the files. I'll talk more about my filing system in a different video along with tagging, but we'll talk about tagging really quick, which is that, so again, I've got the item selected, and then here's that same information that I pointed out on the right, the abstracts and everything. There's also tags. So I'll also talk about my auto tagger in another video, but you'll see I have a tag that's just to read. But let's see here. We know this is about, I don't know, nutrition. It's about cognitive decline. It's about physical activity. And so you can just start tagging it with all sorts of things. You can also have it automatically tag things with the keywords the authors chose when submitting it to the journal, but because they might use all sorts of weird ones, I usually don't have mine set to do that, and I just choose all my own tags. And so once you've added a tag, it will appear in your in this tag cloud down here, and you can use that to, okay, so I want to read that. What was that paper that I read that used the Cardia data set and was about cognitive function? Oh, here's 4 papers about that. And so it's an easy way to you find that one paper that you read that you can't quite remember what it was. So if you keep up with your tagging, but I'll talk a lot more about the tagging system later. Right now we're talking about adding items. So that was one way, using the Zotero connector. What if we don't have it installed, or it's not working for us, or we can't find the item online, but we have maybe a reference from a different paper? Well, we are of course familiar with DOIs, so you can usually find this in a paper, if you usually near the end of the abstract, or maybe in the footer of a paper, and it's also often in the reference page if you're just reading another paper and you see this referenced. So we're going to copy that DOI number, And we are going to go to the we're in Zotero now. We're going to go for our little add items by identifier. And you can see there's a lot of identifiers you can use. PubMed IDs, ARCs of IDs, ISBNs, things of that nature. And I'm just going to paste that whole DOI. It thought for a minute, and there it is. It found the same paper, and it automatically downloaded the paper. I just double-clicked on it to open the particular paper in question, and it opened up in Zotero to read the PDF. So that is one way to do it. You can add it via the little magic wand using a DOI. And on that same note, you can also use that to add books, because of course it had the ISBN. So for example, let's go back here, Google. One of the books commonly used in the dietetics profession is called Krause's Food and the Nutrition Care Process. This is a very common book used by dietitians, but I don't have a PDF version, so I can't just easily add that into my Zotero. I have an actual hard copy. So what I can do is I can get the ISBN, and this is actually the edition I have, even though it's several years old, but this is the edition I have. So I'm just copying the ISBN. And then same deal, just paste that in there. It found it. There it is, Krause's Food and Nutrition Care Process. Now, because it's a whole book, it didn't download the PDF. You have to be able to actually access the file for it to download the file. But that is now in my Zotero, which means that if I were to cite it for a paper or something of that nature, I can easily just export the bibliography from here, which I will obviously be going over in another video, but that's a way to get books that you maybe have a physical copy of into your Zotero as well, so that you can manage those citations as well. Move item to trash, and then we'll also be deleting these other things that I did want to keep that one there. Move item to trash. We don't need a duplicate of it though. All right. Another thing is, let's say that your PI just gave you a folder of 20 random PDFs that are all called Untitled 1 and author's name 73 and things of that nature. What can you do with that? Well, we can add that. We can add that with we can add that into Zotero as well. So I actually saved something just called journal paper that I was given. We're going over this in my own lab's journal club this upcoming week. So I need to read this. So I'm going to add it to my Zotero. This is just a PDF file. I can open it up and show it to you all. Purine nucleotide depletion prompts cell migration by stimulating the serine synthesis pathway. Sounds fascinating. We want it in Zotero. So there's two ways to do it. We can, of course, go add with the little green plus sign and do a link to the file or a stored copy of the file, but that's a lot of clicking. That could take like 10 whole seconds. So instead, we're just gonna drag the file directly into it. So now, you might have noticed that it appeared as journal paper, but then it thought for a minute, and it found the paper, right? So it's no longer called journal paper. Now it's called purine nucleotide depletion, etc., etc. That's because most PDFs have metadata. So Zotero can read their metadata and find that information, and it will try to do that. But if someone stripped away the metadata, or if no one ever added metadata in the first place, it won't be able to do that. So in that case, what I would do is, if you end up in that sort of situation, I just open the file you have. And let's see here, this is that same file, and let's find it. There's going to be one, there's always one, yep. Just find the DOI on that paper, and just add it the same way we'd done any other DOI. Oops. DOI, and add it that way, and then it will automatically find it from that. So you can see it added that copy using the DOI. So, and it even attached the file. Sometimes it doesn't do that. This one's open access, which is why it was able to. Let's say you have a PDF that your PI gave you that is normally behind a paywall, but you happen to have a PDF, but you added it by DOI number to get the metadata in. I know we're getting a little niche, but let's say that you did do that. So we've got the listing there, but if you double click it, it doesn't open anything. You can right click on this and say add attachment, add a stored copy of the file, and then just browse to it and add it in that way. So now that's attached to that listing. You can see journal papers attached to that. This is also useful if you're adding things that aren't actually the paper to the file. So let's see here, where is this one? For this particular paper, if I double click on it, we can have the paper itself, but then I also wanted to have the supplements and the figures and tables. So I went in and added in, and then here's their protocol, here's their their publication summary. So you can also add in other things other than just the file and have it all attached to that same added file. So these are the ways that I tend to add things most often to Zotero. There are probably other ways that you might be able to find to add things in, but this is definitely the ways that I tend to add almost everything. So I highly recommend these options for filling up your Zotero library, and we'll go ahead and move on to the next topic.